Hi all, and welcome to another evening with Thomas show. This afternoon's guest is Willow Niitsuma. Hope I've pronounced that correctly. And she's going to be telling us her story, which will be rather interesting. So pin your ear holes back and get ready for what's going to be a rather interesting show. Right, we're going to go into a song now. That was all the songs that come on this show are selected by the guest. So enjoy this. Hi all, and welcome to another version of An Evening with Thomas. Tonight's guest will be Willow Niitsuma. She may not be familiar to you on the Facebook page. She's one of the many who doesn't like Facebook. I don't think any of us really like it too much. But she has a lot to say. And she's done quite an extensive personal journey, some of which has been beneficial, and some of it is not beneficial. And she will be warning of those dangers during the show. So, her first song she picked, All By Myself. Well, nobody has to be by themselves as part of THI. That's what we set up to do, is that no one should feel alone. I know it's a lonely path, but the idea of the THI group is to bring everyone together and look after each other. And so I hope she doesn't feel all by herself, and we're now going to bring her on. Hi, Willow.
Hi, Thomas. I thank you for this opportunity to speak with you and your listeners. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. So we've spoken a few times, and for the benefit of the listeners, Willow's an avid writer on many things to do with the spiritual side of things. And some of the things of hers I've covered in the show a couple of times now. One of them is the Ayahuasca thing for people who have some memory. But we're going to go into a short biography of your life first, Willow, and then we'll go through some of the things that have been important in your life.
Okay. My life, I would not wish my life on anyone. It has been very difficult. My parents did not have the capacity to guide or to teach me, so I learned everything on my own. Physically, since childhood, I've had ailments or illnesses most of my life. I was raised in a family of 10. There were 8 children, and we were born 1.5 to 2 years apart. So no needs were met, no boundaries, no respect for one another, and it was extremely difficult, especially in the puberty years of the older siblings. I was the 5th born.
No.
So through the spiritual doors opened when I was 9, and this frightened me to no end. I had the abilities to sense and feel a spirit, and in some cases I knew the death of the relative, and this extended to animals as well. I knew when I felt things that I should not have known, and I knew I could not depend on my parents. I knew they couldn't help me. So at 9 years old, I sent myself to a Presbyterian church, and Jesus was not, his connection was a step to God. So it was like I was going to develop a straight connection to God, not by way of Jesus. And so I just sent myself for years, because that was the only thing that gave me I guess, comfort.
Yes.
In my abilities.
Yeah.
So, so it started at 9, but the major experience that happened, there were 2 of them that happened, and there were many deaths actually that I had experienced since from 9 to 24. Was my father was in the process of dying, and he was 5 miles away, and I felt his spirit, and I don't know how I knew. I was a bank teller at that time, and I don't know how I knew where he was, but I knew where he was, and I drove, and I found him, and he would have died that morning. But, and then again at 24, and that was the death of my brother. So this is where I was thrown in the fire to deal with my shadow work. It was triggered by the death of my brother, and I spent 10 years of the dark night of the soul.
Wow.
After the death of my brother, I had very little interest in living. I wanted to be with him. He was 2 years older than myself. I was 24 and he was 26. But my family went on with their lives and I didn't. I basically died when he died. At that point, I began severe symptoms of eczema, insomnia, post-nasal drip, which created excessive coughing and lung problems. And then I also began my severe chronic fatigue that lasted for 29 years.
Wow.
So I've been healthy now for 4 years. This is the healthiest I've been in my life. And I'd like to take a pause here and tell you actually what healed me. 4 years ago, I began eating my food. And once I began eating my food, it took 2.5 years to heal. And I had read a series of books from Russia, and I'll let you know what those books are in a minute, but I just want to continue with this thread. After I read the books, I lived in a rental, so I bought some pots and dirt and starters from Whole Foods, and I grew my own food in my backyard. And I started to clip and eat. Now, my son was 16 at that time, and I basically told him, you know, I'm so sick, and it got progressively worse. I tried everything, Chinese medicine, homeopathy. I tried everything, and it would help the symptoms, but I always went back. You know, I'd have to keep pumping money to get better. I ate 2 salads a day, and so anyway, he was 16, and I told him, you know, I'm going to die in 5 years, because it got to the point where I could barely even function for even 10 hours a day. So I would give my son his main meal indoors and then send him out to the garden, and he would clip and eat while it had the life force in it. So my body was ill, and I used to clip my fingernails once every 2 weeks, and I started to clip once a week. He was 16, and he used to clip once a week, and he started to clip his nails every 3 days. I began arthritis 6 months prior at this time on my little finger, and the knuckle was swelling, and it was throbbing on a daily basis, and that completely stopped. My thyroid balanced out, and I no longer took herbs for my thyroid. The life force in the plant, when we clip and eat, and it's consumed, that life force it's got to go somewhere, and it goes into the ethers. But if it's in your body, that life force will be absorbed. Your body will absorb that life force. And I think that's what the missing key was in my diet. Yes. In all the nutrition, it was any medications. At that time, before I started to eat greens, I was taking $100 a month of essential oils just to keep from drowsiness. Yeah. And within 2 weeks, I was able to stop everything and just eat the live greens. And to this day, I've been traveling to Peru almost every other month for the past year. I go to an organic farm because I don't have the time to grow greens. And I buy 3 flats of greens, and I drop one off to my son, and I keep 2, and I eat at least 1 or 2 6-packs of the greens.
Good stuff.
So the books that I had read was the Ringing Cedar series by Vladimir Magritte, and book number 1 is Anastasia, and 100 million sold in Russia alone. There are YouTube videos based on these books. It's called The Kin's Domain of the Earth series, Echo Village, and they actually show that these people that had read these books had moved from the city, acquired some land from the government, started growing their own food, and helped each other build their houses.
Yep, that's the way to be. That's what we're trying to achieve here. And this is part of the problem with the mainstream media, and particularly in America, is the loathing of all things Russian. Because they have it's almost like a lost culture. Some of the material that we've used in the shows to do with Levashov, of how he was able to get plants and make them grow 3 to 10 times more fruitful, and by the energy essence between himself and the plant, and it will respond. And of course the Russians also are far more advanced. I know people don't like to hear this, but scientifically they're far more advanced than we are here, or we've been told here. And one of the things is the like you just said, the growing of the food, where they will make pyramids, small pyramids, and put the plants in the pyramids, and they grow exponentially. So it's getting back that contact between ourselves and nature, which is basically what we've lost with all this processed food and all the other rubbish, that basically the degradation of man. So I like, before you go a bit further, I'd like you to put into your words your feelings at age 9, where basically you felt everything was wrong or backwards or upside down, and how you particularly dealt with that.
In age 9?
Yeah.
I could not function at school because I could not understand why the material that we were being taught had anything to do with life.
Yeah.
And it had, one could say it had everything to do with a job,
yeah.
But I just could not, for some reason, retain the information unless it was spiritually based. Then my interest would peak, and I'm 57 now, so I have been self-educating myself in the spiritual arts on my own. I couldn't afford to go to retreats, meditation retreats, but I think I was probably around 11 when I got a book about Russia and the psychic programs that they had, and I devoured that book.
Wow.
To me that was something that was worth my time.
Yeah.
And even when I was raising my son, I was looking for alternative education, and I found it in Waldorf. So I went through the teacher's training program, and I homeschooled him because he was being abused in the first grade by the teacher. The
Yep.
teacher was literally screaming, and they could hear from the other side of the wall. And so Waldorf, I think, was a good step in the way that it trains the mind, the heart, and the hands. So my son's education was extensive in the way where in high school he did carpentry and wood and metal and photography, and they had to carry a backpack, 60-pound backpack, 25 miles into nature and out.
Wow.
You know, they had to carry everything. I mean, so they had hands-on nature type of education rather than just the head.
Yeah, it's basically a direct interaction with your surroundings and environment, whereas the education system is just an indoctrination mind control program. That's the difference, you know. I think I've documented many times on the shows how I got on at school because they didn't like me one iota because I asked too many questions they couldn't answer. And so the idea is, you know, and the original school curriculum did teach this until the Vatican Church stepped in the 14th century, where they taught astronomy, which is high-level maths, high-level science, called chemistry and physics. When I went to school, it's called science. Now it's all encompassing. But at least you've got to find something that has a connection with the individual and not just programming them with rubbish. And so the curriculum is not based on, as you said, on real life, because they don't want you to have real life. They want you to be part of the slave program. And so it's kudos to yourself that even at such a young age you could see through the illusion. And you'll know, as we spoke about this yesterday, you can't formulate it into words, or you just know it's not right, and you haven't received the education or the vocabulary to put it into words. And it's kind of frustrating at that age when you think adults know better or teachers know better, when in reality they don't.
It's also, you know, the educational program that I didn't do well in school, and that affected my. I didn't know how intelligent I was. Because you know, I was up against a system that said, well, if you don't do well in school, you're not very smart.
Yeah.
So I mean, it took years to understand that I am intelligent, and I think it's because, and you know, I wasn't, I guess you could say, normal, because of the spiritual doors, and because they were so frightening to me, and so, you know, I didn't know how to trust myself. I didn't know, I couldn't trust life because of my introduction to death. So
in essence,
it was very difficult.
Was it the case of finding yourself, sorry to interrupt, was it a case of finding, then you realised you had to trust yourself to move forward?
That didn't come in until my 30s, until I did my inner work. I mean, until then I literally lived through childhood, through my 20s, 90% in fear.
Yep.
And once I straightened myself out and I did my inner work, then that no longer fear. That fear does not guide my life anymore. It does not resonate in my being anymore. Maybe 5%, but if at that, there's usually reason for it.
Yes, absolutely. So you mentioned you had psychic abilities. Was that something else that put you in fear, because you then suddenly realise, you assume at that age that everyone else has the same, and then you realise that you're kind of lonely in that field?
I just knew that this was not natural.
Yeah.
And I knew that I knew my siblings were normal. I knew I wasn't. I knew that, and I didn't understand. Understand it, but as long as I went to church, I felt like hell during the week with my siblings, and then I went to church and was a saint on Sundays. But it was the only thing that gave me, I guess, a thread that I was going to be okay, and life was going to be okay.
Yeah.
that's all I had. I mean, now I'm 57, and I'm thinking, wow, that's not good.
How did it go through all of that and still, that's why I keep playing the song occasionally, I'm Still Standing, because the trials and tribulations we've come through in this one lifetime, most of us in the awake community, it's extraordinary we're all still here and insane. Two separate words, not one word. We're not unsane at the moment. We've managed to retain our sanity whilst the rest of the world just, we're just looking at it aghast. It doesn't appeal to us. It doesn't feel part of us. And if that's normal, then I think I'll say abnormal. But it's difficult when you're really young, like you were. And I've spoken about myself often enough about, my youth. It's difficult in that environment to grow, and in essence you go insular, and in essence you're just squeezing yourself into a tiny dot, and eventually that dot has to have some water and grow again. And that's basically what you've done, is you've regrown the seed of yourself, transformed yourself to what it should have been when you in your youth, but the system worked against the people who have woken too soon. So you have done a remarkable job. So
thank you.
Raising your son. Carry on. If you want to say some more on that.
Yeah, can I just finish this thought? There's an article on the internet called the bovine. If they Google bovine anesthesia, and they can see, it says in 1999, 35 million small family plots produced. Click on that, and it shows that the president of Russia in 2003 signed into law the Private Garden Plot Act, where 30 million citizens got free land, and they started growing food. Now, take into account that Russia has only 110 growing days in the season per year. And here in America, we could produce so much more in these small plots. And this is one way we can begin in a small way to become independent in our survival needs, by growing our own food.
Yeah. And of course, then you get councils like in New York, where they banned the food boxes on the shelf and arresting people. Why are we tolerating this rubbish?
Mm-hmm.
Everything's so bad in Russia. They're communists and this and that, when most people don't even understand the term communist, what it actually means. You can change a couple of letters and turn it into communalism, which is basically what that is, like you described earlier, where the people are being personally responsible and looking after each other, which is the way it has to go. This competing against each other is killing all of us in the Western world in particular. We don't look after each other. It's every man for himself and bugger off the rest of you. No, we have to stop that. And it's all about communalism. I think Tanat came up with that word. And it's not that much different to communism if it's applied in the right way, where everyone has a chance. Now, obviously, communism also got distorted, where it becomes a central control system. But the essence of it is more beneficial to the people than any democracy or republic or monarch or any other rubbish that they come up with. And at the end of the day, it's all about us, what we do, and what we tolerate. And we have to stop tolerating the rubbish that we're being given on all levels of society. And so I'm glad you brought that up.
So I think that's why I had severe ailments like severe eczema all through childhood. It's the stress, and it's having to have dipped into the spiritual world and live in the physical world and have no understanding, no support, and just be freaked out by these experiences. So after the death of my brother, I began my dark night of the soul, and I began to read metaphysics. It was like a fever, and I devoured books. They gave me answers to the Christian belief system that the Christian belief system could not give me, and some understandings of my abilities. I took a great interest in Native American and the goddess pagan religions, and Rudolf Steiner and some Buddhism. And then I also, at that time, had my first psychic teacher, and I spent 10 years reading the chakra systems and giving psychic readings. And I just want to pause here. You know, the information that I read, it was necessary for me to understand on the level of my evolution at that time, and I was 24, 25. Yeah. If it did not make sense to me, I put it on the shelf. You know, I was never one to believe on blind faith of what was written. It had to make sense to me. Yeah. There's a speaker that charges $4,000 for a 10-day treatment, $800 for lectures, and $1,800 for a 4-day workshop for 4 days, and $2,000 for yoga, and that's Deepak Chopra. Yeah. I've never been drawn to his material. I just sensed and I knew that he catered to the wealthy. And I don't know what he has to say for $1,800 for a ticket of $1,800, but, you know, we can get everything from you, Tommy, free. But, you know, even like Lynn Andrews, I just wasn't drawn to that kind of material, and if I did find something, it had to make sense with me and my biography from my own spiritual experiences. At the age of 28, 3 events happened to me in a 2-week period, and it ended up with totaling my car in an accident. And looking back at that period of time, I did not develop in myself a strong foundation of the self. And I was on a verge at that time. I was either on the verge or I was having a nervous breakdown. And that's when I began therapy. At that period of time, for at least a good year, I existed from day to day. I didn't have a strong thread of, I guess, desire to even live. The trust, I had no trust in myself. My foundation was rocked to its core, and I took one day at a time, and I moved forward only because I had to. I spent 3.5 years healing my childhood wounds and abuse, and 1.5 years healing my broken woman. The years in therapy, doing my inner work paid off. My pain and my inner demons had become my gold and my wisdom. Much understanding and wisdom was acquired, and I no longer experienced severe physical ailments except for the chronic fatigue. The shadow work and all those wounds, all these issues, it is absolutely necessary to deal with. I dealt with it in the stages of first acknowledging it, then understanding it, then grieving, sometimes getting angry. Yeah. And then grieving, and then letting it go.
So
at the age of 30...
Sorry, I just like to get your own points on this, because it's important for the listeners. Was the anger of the self, or outside of you, or a mixture of both?
It was a mixture of both. There were times when I should have protected myself and I should have known better, and there were times when things weren't inflicted upon me. And so I felt that violation of the boundaries. So there's both. Now that I'm older, it's usually me. because I should know better, and am I willing to dance with someone who just wants to dance in the dark forces? I think not. And if I did, it's shame on me.
Well, it's all the path of, again, coming back to what you're responsible for in life. It's too easy to just blame the cabal or blame Trump or blame Bush or Clinton, when a lot of the things within your own life, apart from some of the more targeted individuals, because we have to be aware of that, are down to your own responsibility. And yes, many of us, you'll be surprised at how many who were in the awake community who went through difficult stages with parents, often abusive, both verbal and physical, and also had the same issues in school, non-learning, you're stupid, as the teachers, and it just goes on, and it's all about shrinking. They know the ones that shine the light brighter, and they send all kinds of signals to dim that light, and it's up to you to fight back and go, you're not controlling my life, I'm going to shine my light no matter what you throw at me. And that's basically what you've done. And as you said, it's taken a lot of work, but people have to learn to put in the work to reap the benefits.
That's correct. The children are victims under the trust and guidance and care of their parents. However, when they into adulthood, they are responsible to clean that up, and they cannot blame their parents because they are adults. They now can govern their own life and make their own decisions as an adult. Yeah. And I think parents do the best that they can with their own consciousness. Some parents decide not to grow, and you know what? They have a right to be who they are. Yeah. But we have a right to if they're not healthy, it's not healthy. If they're not healthy individuals and they're a detriment to your emotional, mental health, you have a right to say, you know what, this relationship is over. Yeah. It's you are responsible to take care of yourself emotionally, mentally, and physically. Yeah. That is your responsibility as an adult.
Absolutely.
So at age 34, I knew my own self-value. I had done enough inner work where I had held, and I know my own glass heart. I prayed for something bigger than myself to live for, and then my son was conceived and born. And he was the greatest and most honorable journey in my life, was just raising him. The love, the responsibility, and the joy that my son gave me was immense, and his trust in me to care for him. I mean, to hold that is so, so sacred. So after my son was born, my 17-year relationship and marriage was over with my husband. When I wasn't looking, my consciousness grew and I changed, and I had outgrown the marriage. I knew that if I left my marriage, I would experience financial hardship, and I did leave when my son was 2.5. So here I'd like to take a pause here and just talk about dropping or leaving your responsibilities behind. And this is my opinion. Yeah. For whatever reason you leave your marriage with children, whether it be your spiritual quest, a job, another relationship, or you outgrew the relationship, always remember that someday you will get your life back when your child goes off to college. Your children still need you, not want you, but need you in their life, in their formative years to 18 as a solid foundation, if it's possible for you to do so. Intimate relationships in my life were never revealed to my son in his formative years, unless marriage was in the future, and that never happened. For the child, it is difficult to deal with 2 houses, 2 rules, school, growing up and understanding the world and people, and then to throw another person in their personal life that he or she has to consider is another added issue that may not be necessary. I have met many single parents that have relationships go in and out, in and out, in and out of the child's life as, they're trying to fulfill their own needs. And to me, this is not a good thing for the child. Regarding leaving a relationship for another lover, and again, this is my opinion, when the emotional and mental loyalty is no longer present, this is the time to leave. If you find someone and then you leave, you not only deal with breaking their heart, but you deal with breaking their trust as well, which is a mirror of your own emotional and moral fabric. You always remember you are the primary role model for your children. All children and animals need as many people around to love them as possible. I know a lot of divorces, they use the children as pawns, and you have to try to come together because you're modeling for your children. And my ex-husband and I role model for our son, and we try to be cordial and respectful, and even to this day we're caring of each other. But parents really need to understand how serious that impact is, that when they do leave the children, the family unit, that they still need to be to be responsible. So, and if it's possible, I mean, some situations it's just not possible. But anyway, as a single parent, I changed my residence and belongings 21 times in 19 years. At the age of 7, my son was in a Waldorf school in Santa Cruz, and his teacher was abusive. And I knew if I kept him in the school, his daily dose of abuse from the teacher would cause more mental and emotional problems. And as a single parent, that would have been something I would not have wanted to deal with. And so I enrolled in a teacher's training program, and I was there for 3 years, and then every summer for another 2 or 3 years to get the curriculum. And I homeschooled my son from grades 1 through 6. And it was really, really difficult because I had to homeschool him, and then I had to go to school, and then I had to do homework on the weekends. I had to work on weekends, and I had to do homework. If I had homework, I had to get up at 1 in the morning and study till 3 or 4 in the morning. That was very, very difficult. I dedicated 18 years to raising my son, which I think is I believe is the most important job on the planet.
Yep.
And the parent is the greatest influence in forming this child, this human being. So this led me to Colorado. My son was in the Santa Rosa High School, and he was severely bullied emotionally and mentally at that school. And so we then moved. I wanted at least 1 year for him to have 1 year in high school for him to have a decent year. So we moved to Colorado to another Waldorf high school, and he was abused there by a millionaire's son, but not as severely. So I'd like to take a pause here about the Waldorf school. The Waldorf schools are no different than public schools regarding the community, dysfunction, or the low consciousness. The difference between a Waldorf school and a public school is just the curriculum. The curriculum is specialized. Due to the spiritual foundation and the belief system and the education of Rudolf Steiner, Waldorf counselors, teachers, and community blows off many situations as karmic situations with no responsibility on the part of the individual in the situation. Because it's based on Rudolf Steiner's spiritual foundation. And my experience in the community for the 6 years that my son was in school was a lack of emotional intelligence and boundaries, not only with the community, but also with the teachers and the counselors. There was no emotional intelligence, and I'm a firm believer that teachers and doctors and nurses need to go to therapy for 5 years, do inner work for 5 years, because they are affecting, especially children.
Absolutely.
So Steiner was known as a seer. The information delivered by you, Thomas, differs in the education of Steiner in many ways. I attended the teacher's training program, and I've had to take a step back on the material that I was taught at the college. I mean, it's so entrenched in, I guess, the Christian religion belief system. So we're in Colorado. I met a man who's now my friend named Ron. Ron was the son of the economic advisor for one of the past presidents. His father was an economic advisor. Now, my friend Ron took the opportunity to talk to me. He told me many things about the financial system, the Illuminati, the ETs, Hollywood, and this was not in my education, and I kept up in world news. While I was raising my son, I didn't have a TV for 20 years, so I got a bulk of my news from NPR. I was an NPR addict, National Public Radio. I listened to it, as I cooked, as I cleaned, as I drove to work, 2 to 6 hours a day. I spent 2 years, after I met my friend Ron, I spent 2 years researching the Trilateral Commission, the Council for Foreign Relations, Agenda 21, the IRS, the taxes, birth certificates, educational system, the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, Empire, the Berinsky documents. And then when I hit the ET, the ufology, that was a game changer. And I had to consider what that meant to humanity. I had to question our education, science, history, medical, and religion. And the fact that they had the technology in the early 1900s to heal any sickness, and the technology to blow up a planet. So I was distraught at what I had learned, and I realized that my reality and the life I was living was false in many ways. The metaphysical books that I had read for over 32 years and the religious books were only half true or not true at all.
Yep.
So I want to take a pause here and just talk about how we can do our part to educate others. My friend Ron took the time to talk to me. I took the time to educate myself. I in turn now take the time to talk to people. I've handed out at least 100 flyers, and I don't talk to them on my level of understanding. I try to talk to them on their level of consciousness, and then I start with Patrick Wood, studied the Trilateral Commission for 40 years. Edward Griffin studied the Federal Reserve and the Council for Foreign Relations for 20 years. Bob Dean, Cosmic Top Secret, is a 1-hour video or 1-hour lecture at Leeds University in Britain. You see, so you go down to their level first, and then I slip in the ET, and let them, just consider how does this affect humanity? So Ron did a wonderful favor for me, and I took him up on it and educated myself, and I in turn have tried to educate others. I would stand in line in Colorado, and I would hand flyers to the students, and I would ask, what are you studying? Economics. Oh, did you know?
Yeah.
So anyway, in Colorado, my son graduates. I return to California. He is now in college, and he lives with his father. And he now must wrestle with 2 streams of belief systems from his parents. His father is a UC Berkeley grad, a retired attorney, and his mother, who believes that the educational system is bogus and BS. So my son has to straddle this.
The 2 worlds theory again.
Yes. And so anyway, so my son's moved away, and 30 days after my son leaves, I end up moving back to California. In 2016, which is last April, I went to the Free Your Mind conference with Mark Passio with my friend Ron. And two people told me about ayahuasca. And in May, the following month, I made plans to take a trip to Peru with my son. And that was the beginning, in June, was the beginning of my journey with ayahuasca. I knew very little about ayahuasca, nor I didn't even read anything on it, on shamanism or ayahuasca. I basically was looking for a purpose in life to serve humanity. My son went into a retreat in late June and returned to California, and I stayed at a guest house in Peru for 23 days and then went into the retreat. Prior to going into the retreat, and I will let you know, I would talk about this retreat at the end of the show. There are two retreats, that only 2 out of 13 that I attended that I would even recommend. And anyway, I had 3 ceremonies in 3 private homes, and then I went into the retreat. And it was that first retreat, ceremony in that retreat, where I was offered an initiation to take the shamanic path by the medicine, and I accepted. So that began the shamanic journey, and I think that ends this part of my biography.
Yes, well, we'll probably at just the right time to have play your second music piece now, and you can give your voice a bit of a rest, and we'll listen to your second music choice. We'll be back shortly with more from Willow, and I hope you enjoy this next song. Hi all, and welcome back to the second hour of An Evening with Thomas, with our guest Willow this evening. That was a song by Barbara Streisand, Somewhere, and somehow, some way we'll get to a better way of living, and this is what it's all about. And so, are you ready for round 2, Willow?
I am.
Good. So, we kind of ended with your biography, and then the next phase of your life is understanding and your journey in consciousness, and what you would consider to be acquiring your higher consciousness. Can you speak a bit about that?
Yes. My journey and opinion in acquiring higher consciousness. There are Okay, so working them out in a step-by-step and day-to-day process with our intention and desire, our will must be fully engaged. We must have clear mental capacities, not drug-induced, and with integrity and truth and honor in our morals, ethics, and values. And I believe this will bring freedom, wisdom, and higher consciousness. Now, in our experiences in life and interactions with people, we absorbed experiences on many levels. For me, I wanted to learn the lessons in every aspect. I couldn't have an experience of something and just let it go. I was one that wanted to dissect every aspect for learning. The dark experiences that impacts our emotional, mental, physical, and spiritual bodies, and our dark character traits in ourselves need to be addressed and worked through in acknowledging, learning, and processing and letting it go. The more work I did on myself, the more connection and concern I felt for humanity. And this process of reaching and working for higher consciousness is working towards the light. So I'd like to take a pause here and talk about alcohol and drugs, and this is including marijuana. Now, marijuana as an oil is an incredible healing, medicinal plant, but it was not meant to be smoked. Alcohol and smoking marijuana disengages the will, so you cannot feel your stomach, the third chakra, this is the hunger. You can't feel your stomach, so you just keep eating. It compromises your mental capacities. It weakens your emotional boundaries, and you will not be in full power of your three bodies, which is the mental, emotional, and physical bodies. For higher consciousness, it is absolutely necessary to be in full power of your bodies. Self-help work is an internal process. As I had spoken earlier, I was a trusted child under the guardianship of my parents and the adults around. Things happened to me when I was out in the world and with people, and I wish I had control of all the thoughts and emotions that come in and out, but I don't. It is my responsibility as a grown adult to clean and process the past and the present demons to bring them to light. I am a worker. I'm choleric in nature, and I work through my processes by doing it. Some people work through their processes by writing or drawing. But in my 20s, when I had the privilege to give readings to other people, I started to study cycles, the inward cycles and the outward cycles. And like the seasons, like day and night, year to year, we go through cycles. There are 7-year cycles, there are 10-year cycles. But I have come to honor these cycles in myself. The outward cycles, I would feel like I was on top of the world. I was ready to take on anything. I had desire to visit friends, attend social functions, and explore. But the inward cycles, there were deep inner processes that were going on that were usually at work within. I felt vulnerable and exceptionally sensitive. This is always a good time to spend more time in nature. The nature is always calming and healing to the soul. This is also a good time to purge or clean your bedroom or your house or work on a creative project. In my early 20s, somebody exposed me to the Enneagram system. It's ENNEAGRAMS. In California, one could take the course and be certified, get a certification, and then use it in their practice, therapy and counseling practice. I found this to be very helpful in understanding myself and my family. This is a system that helped me understand how a person views their world through their eyes. You can actually take an online test to find out what number you are. The reason why I like the system a lot is it fluctuates from your neutral state to stress state to your heart state, and also a wing, whether you wing left or right on the numbers. Meditation for me, I think because of my choleric nature, it's too hard, and it takes so much energy just for me to quiet. I do my best meditation as soon as I wake up, and my mind is refreshed. I go through my energy channels. I heal myself, or look at issues, or I heal somebody else. But most of my processes, I worked by cleaning and clearing out my personal space, walking in nature or working on a project. I have had my most profound insights while I was just walking or laying in the bath at 3 a.m., but there was always silence. Please take note that your bedroom is a reflection of your inner intimate self. This is one room in your house that you share with only one other person, and that's your intimate partner. All the other rooms in the house are shared space. And I found that clearing out my intimate personal space of my bedroom in silence, I would receive understanding and information of my personal intimate issues and challenges. Messages would come in just by being open in mind, emotion, and body. My poor son, would come to me in dream and tell me something that he had done wrong. And I would be walking from my bedroom to the kitchen, and I would get a psychic hit that my son was playing video games at his father's fiance's house. so, I mean, messages like that would just come through. But usually, if there was a message like that, it was important. The spiritual world was trying to tell me things that are important for me to address. The daily or lifestyle of growth, I believe that every day is an opportunity for self-development and inner growth, to try to stay present in moment to moment, to try to always do what is right, to be helpful if possible, to stay fluid in thought processes, and I always try to stay fluid in my direction in life. I can really do that now because I've raised my son, and that period in my life is over. And always stand in honor of your integrity and who you are, and entertain what is needed to become self-sufficient and to help serve humanity. I believe that life is not a goal, it is a process. With the development of the self on a daily basis, monthly, yearly basis, higher capacities are cultivated. Through the development of your capacities, you never know what opportunities will present itself in the future. I've never been a writer. Writing has always been a struggle. It still is. I'm now writing my experiences of my journey in Peru, and looking back in my life, the years of my spiritual education, my self-spiritual education, developed my capacities to do the work that I am doing now. I wouldn't have even known that 30 years ago. I didn't know that this would have been maybe part of my destiny, but I know this could not have been part of my destiny had I not done my inner work. It wouldn't have been enough just to read and educate myself with books and seminars. The inner work on every level was mandatory for me to do what I'm doing now. Now this part is the respect for the body. Your body is your vessel in this lifetime, and you are responsible to care for your body, not your husband, not your wife, and not your parents. It's my opinion that you should try to sleep before midnight, eat good food and natural food, live food on a daily basis if it's possible. Do not push your body beyond healthy capacities, and remove yourself from unhealthy emotional, mental, and physical situations, and this includes family situations if necessary. It's my opinion that there's a need for vegetarians. This next statement will push buttons. However, it is my opinion. This is especially for the spiritual workers, the body workers, people that give massages, the psychics, the shamans, the healers. They use their bodies as spiritual vessels. Yeah. Eating meat requires killing animals. The animals are sentient beings with cognitive thinking capacities and emotional processes. An individual is then ingesting the emotional temperament along with the flesh of the animal. The consciousness of the animals is infused into the body of the spiritual worker. Mark Passio has a very good podcast. It's called his podcast number 122, Carnism. And Melanie Joy, there's a very good video called The Psychology of Eating Meat. And it talks about the cognitive. There's a film where a gentleman talks about the cognitive processes of a cow gave birth to twins, and she knew that one of the calf was going to be taken from her, so she hid the other one. And sure enough, when she gave birth, her calf was taken from her, and every time she came in the morning to be milked, there was no milk, and the farmer was baffled. He found out that she hid the other calf, and every morning she would go and feed the other calf. So another very good video is called Anna Breitenbach, How Diablo Became Spirit. That's a very good one where you could really understand the cognitive thinking and feeling of the animals. So the next part I would like to talk about is shortcuts in inner growth and higher consciousness. For me, There is no shortcut. And if anyone knows, please let me know.
No.
Sometimes, depending on the task at issue, I had to struggle through my processes for days, weeks, and for my childhood issues, years, until I understood and processed it and let it go. In many experiences through the processes, mistakes and lessons were understood. Once I worked it out, I sailed with wisdom and knowledge in hand. The distractions that retard or slows down progress, I believe, is the virtual world of entertainment, excessive use of computers, cell phones, movies, and TV, dark practices like video gaming and pornography, daily and weekly habits and addictions of food, shopping, sex, mindless sex, money, and gambling. You know, I think people need to really take a step back and understand how their attention and their time is valuable. And living in the real world as much as possible in honor and positive intention is necessary for higher consciousness. Because if you spend hours and your attention is on the TV or on the computer, are you working on yourself? I mean, this is a question they need to ask themselves. So their attention and their time is focused. Their consciousness is focused on something else, and really, is that something else important? So in gaining personal power, a natural balance of emotional, mental, and physical bodies will be cultivated through inner work. You do not need to seek wowy experience of astral projections and visionary experiences through drugs, even through ayahuasca. Through inner work, you will experience it in full on your soul level and consciously in your four bodies daily with deep love for yourself and others. You will feel that deep gratitude for your life and your experiences, and you will develop trust, courage, and strength in yourself. You will come to feel and know the purity of your own soul. And, you know, there were times now, and I couldn't say this in my 20s, but because of all the struggles that I've had in life and the challenges and who I am today, I mean, just elated gratitude for life and that the consciousness that I have now, and just thankful for the journey, the difficult journey that I had taken, and in the past. I mean, it wasn't easy. I didn't have a show like yours, Tommy, where these people are so lucky because they have support. They have support from you. You try to guide them. They are so lucky. There was nobody around. None of my friends were in therapy. Out of all of us 8 siblings, 2 of them have passed, and the other 5 have not had therapy. I had one of my parents that said, you know, you invested 30,000, was it back then 15,000? I can't remember, in therapy, and look at you. You know, I mean, but here they have your support. They have your guidance. You're trying to help them. I mean, these people, the listeners are so lucky to have this forum. Well, thank you.
It's you mentioned one thing earlier about destiny, and there's a higher purpose to your particular life, and too often we get pigeonholed into being labels that you're this or you're only just that, you know, or a painter, or you're just an office worker, or you're just a banker, and all that is fine because that's who you are in their world. But it's what you are in your world that we need to address. And this is kind of what we're doing with these shows. And the Thursday shows, because I've spent the last probably 8 to 9 months, a high proportion of it has been on the psychological side. How to to deal with your shadow sides, how to deal with your inner work, how to deal with your ground and center. And at this time, please take note, because I will repeat it twice so that you, the listeners, take it in. Shielding, and shielding, because there's a lot of negative, dark influences trying to pull you back into the matrix. And we have to be aware of that. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. There's millions of people around the world who believe in God, but I've never seen him, or her, or it. And so we really have to take stock of who we are. The piece I do at the end of most of the shows is important in its totality, because it lays it out. If you're going to live your life in love, you will prevail. If you're going to live your life in fear and anger, you will fail. And it talks about the gross and hideous lifestyle we've embroiled ourselves in, of competing with our friends, family or neighbours, the best house, best car, and all this rubbish. But it's not you. It's the marketing image that's been delivered to you, and the programming that we've all taken on board. It's not the real you. You are not a better person because you are driving around in a Bentley than driving around in a Fiat Uno or whatever. That's not you. The you is outside of the car. The you is outside of the house. And we have to get back to that, where materialistic things are dominating our life. How much money you have is not a sign of your achievement. Some of the most richest people on this planet are devoid of any semblance of humanity, consciousness, and are just completely depraved. These people are total psychopaths. So how, if your goal is to achieve a large bank account, look at them. Is that who you wish to be? Well, if that's what you choose, that's your free will. But as time progresses, you're going to see the folly of that process. More and more of the structures of control are breaking down on a daily basis. Our members have been warned about it ahead of time. What's coming, what to look for, and the masks of illusion that's ongoing now, where everyone's mask of illusion is dropping, whether you like that or you don't. People who you thought were okay are suddenly exposing themselves to be not that way, because their mask of illusion is coming down. And the reason is they have not lived their own life in truth. They've believed the lie. They believe that governments are here to look after us, or religions are going to save me from everything. No. ETs, they're not going to save you. Most of them have abused humanity. That's the truth. The only person that saves you is you. And what we're trying to achieve with THI is that we save each other and make the process easier, so that people can come on these shows who would never have dreamt of spilling out their weaknesses and their insecurities and their fears in a safe environment, because too many of us have held on to that negative baggage through our whole lives. How can you accept new frequencies that have been coming in since 2002 that's supposed to be of a more beneficial, positive nature, if your whole vessel is filled with fear, anger, insecurities, lies. It can't. This is the benefit of what Willow's done on her own self-journey. And it takes a lot of hard work. This stuff's not easy. I've told you all on the shows. Truth is painful. Boy, is it painful. But the lie is not. The lie is the city of light pill that humanity took in the past to forget all the trauma, forget all the pain. Life goes on, doesn't really matter as long as it doesn't affect me. You're not going to get away with that in the future. Somebody in the next state losing their home to the banking thieves in foreclosure should matter to you. No, it only becomes an issue when you go into foreclosure. And then you want everyone to help. No, you should be helping and stopping that process before it comes to your little bubble world. I have this same thing with my own family, where my sister tells me, oh, I don't want to hear about them things. I just want to live in my own little world. Those little worlds are not going to exist soon, because their bubbles are going to get massively popped, and it's going to be rather ugly, because they didn't want to see it. This is the problem with the sleepers now, is they've been told over particularly the last 5 years, because this is, to me, and people have been doing this research over 20 years, this is the most exciting time ever, because all the alleged conspiracies are now being shown to be fact. The pedophilia, the corruption of the church, the list goes on and on and on, have all been in the mainstream media now. So we've had disclosure. But have you had disclosure of yourself? Is the most important thing. We have I've said this a couple of times on the show. I was helping one particular person with the ET issue. They were being attacked by entities. And then on the next show, he asked me, when are we going to get ET disclosure? So he's lying to himself, because he's already had it. They've already introduced themselves to you. So there is your disclosure. But no, people want to wait for David Wilcock or Mr. Trump or Putin or some other alleged famous. But then those people are not famous. It's only you that elevates them to appear above you. When in reality, no one is above you. Nobody. You said earlier, life's not a goal. It's a process. That process is rather difficult, is it not?
Yes, it has been difficult.
Oh boy,
yes.
It's difficult.
Yeah, I really have so much compassion and concern for these college students, because the matrix of society is that you go to college, you get a good job, and you become independent, whereas they are feeding a system that is so incredibly corrupt, so manufactured from, and we now know from the ETs, and but yet the judgment of society and their whole ideas and beliefs of what is normal, what is right, and what is successful. And I'm hoping that the younger, and I try to talk especially to younger people, to really develop every aspect of yourself in every way that you could possibly can, and every single project, everything you do, even if it's washing the dishes, do it right. Do it right, strive for excellence. You may not reach perfection, but you could strive for perfection. But anything you do, you try to do the best that you can. And that is a philosophy that I've always had since childhood, and that was really entrenched in the Japanese culture. And I think that if every individual did the best that they can and put themselves forward in honor, I mean, we're going to make it, and this younger generation will have a better world if all of us could step up. Well, some of us in our over 50s and over. I mean, there's not a whole lot of us, but the 20-year-olds, they realize something's wrong in the world. Why are we still in 4 wars? Obama said he was going to get us out, but why are we still in 4 wars?
Yep,
and the honor.
The problem is in America, and it's a nice problem, but it also has implications. Is this country's never been bombed?
Mm-hmm.
Thankfully we haven't, and I never want to wish that. But perhaps if during World War II this country would have been the mainland, I know Hawaii did, which was part of the program and set up, if this country had been bombed, it would have a resonance that we the people don't want to go through that again, because too many just believe what the news says, and yes, you carry on bombing Syrians because they're just Muslims, or carry on bombing Lebanon, they're just Muslims, and they're bad because the TV tells us so, or people in Afghanistan, and don't realise the implications of what is actually taking place. Had it happened in this country in World War I or World War II, then maybe the thought process would be a lot different. And it's a psychological problem. There's a lot of Americans got shocked with 9/11 and basically sent the whole population into shock trauma. Mm-hmm. That probably took around 10 years to get rid of, mm-hmm. so that they started thinking clear again. But the problems are still here. We still tend to think that the boogeymen, be it the Russians, the Chinese, the Muslims, or anybody else, are always 6,000 to 8,000 miles away, that we don't know anything about their lifestyle. They're just bad people because the news tells us so. Well, actually, the real bad people are on our own soil. And mm-hmm. that's the giant elephant in the room, is that people won't face that trauma, that it's not Muslims, it's not Russians, it's not Chinese, it's our alleged own people. And this is how the Germans got away with it, this is how the British got away with it, and the Romans. Their people wouldn't face their own demons. It's always somebody else's demons that are at fault. And only by going within the self, and the more you go within the self, the more empathy you get. So the idea of just sitting there and watching American planes or British planes or French planes dropping bombs from 30,000 feet on the heads of people is not the way to go. And you feel that pain. And once people start feeling that pain, then the idea that we want any war would cease overnight. If you were feeling that pain of the Syrians or the Afghan people or the Iraqi people, it changes everything. So it's important that we do the inner work. It's not easy. You've heard the process that Willow's gone through. It's painful. But if we're going to step outside of the city of light pills, for those of you not familiar with that term, go and watch the series The 100. It explains humanity. All of it. Both the past, the present, and what they think is going to be the future. We think different. So you started, you mentioned shortcuts and inner growth and higher consciousness, but there is no shortcuts.
Nope.
No.
That's called denial. Shortcuts is denial.
Yes.
Oh, that didn't happen to me. Oh, that's okay. I'm just going to move on.
Yeah. And denial's not just the river in Egypt. It's
Yep.
your own denial. You're denying your own river of truth. You know, too often people look for shortcuts. You know, and you mentioned something earlier about seeking perfection, and that's kind of something that's been labelled at me. And I said, well, if you set the bar high enough, you'll keep growing. Whether there is the ultimate perfection, it's unlikely, no matter what you do. But if you set the bar low every time, you're setting your own limitation. And again, too many of us are operating under limitation because I can only do this job because I'm only a painter, or I'm only a roofer, or I'm only an office worker, when you are capable of raising the bar and doing whatever you choose to do. And ultimately, eventually, as the next 3 or 4 decades plays out, and it will be experienced a lot sooner. 40 years is the end of the changeover of humanity. Jobs will become hobbies. Is that something you aspire to?
Yep. I hope it happens sooner than that.
Yeah.
I have hope.
Well, you're from a different culture where the Japanese are a big problem to the cabal because it's more of a secular country, so that they've lost one of the hooks, and they operate largely, from what we know in the Western world, in harmony with nature, and they grow largely their own food, or try to, whether it's changing now and become more Western as we would know it. The problem we have going forward is not so much the elder Japanese or the elder Chinese or the elder Indian people or the people in the Middle East or the people of Africa. The problem is the Western world, because we've all played into the consumer game and the competition game, and it's breaking down that programming that's going to take 3 generations, in my opinion. Hopefully it's sooner, but we have to teach the youth first. Those youth then become adults and teach their youth, and that youth then teaches the next one. After the 3rd level of teaching, that programming's now gone away, and there's a new way of being, a new way of acting, a new way of going about things that's going to be beneficial to the all. But we have to get on that first stage whereby we recognise the problem, and too many in the Western world don't recognise the problem. Your thoughts on that?
The children are, from young age, 8 to 10, the addiction to the technology, to their cell phones, to video games is a very living a virtual world, and training the brain in the virtual world is not a good idea. And the parents don't get it. They don't get it, and it's a quote natural progress to humanity. It's just natural cultural thing, and it's accepted that way. Well, the fact is that they are living in a virtual world for 8, maybe 5 to 6 hours at school, and then they come home. The virtual world on television, the BS programs, comedies, the violent movies, the video games. I mean, and adults too. And it's just, and these parents don't question it. I think because I was exposed to my son's education through high school in the Waldorf, and I saw the hands-on projects that he had to do, you know, I'm able to take a step back and then look at the public schools and question, you know, and ask the parents, you know, what are you doing? You know, you really should consider that your child needs to live in the real world, because the kinesthetics, especially playing the video games, the kinesthetics, and the same thing with martial arts, they practice the same thing over and over again so that they don't have to think, or even playing a piano. The consciousness is through the eyes, focused on the piano, and then moving the hands is kinesthetics. So they take away the sheet of notes, and then the hands flow kinesthetically across the keyboard. That's kinesthetic programming, and it's the same thing with computers, especially with violent video games. It's programming the mind, especially the video games, it's programming the consciousness of that child.
Yep. I thought, you know, we've warned about it. Of course, I've repeatedly warned on the Thursday shows about the dangers of technology. I think it largely goes unheard. But one of the biggest problems we face at the moment, you mentioned the virtual world, is the next stage that they think they're going to implement is the transhumanism. And they condition you to life as part human, part machine. Part human, part computer. Same thing. You know, they already have this technology. And one of the biggest problems is people think technology is the future. If they tell you about it, it means they've had it at least minimum of a decade. Minimum. It's likely they've had it a lot longer. And this is part of the issue that people have to start grasping. Technology is, a lot of it is the past. These people know some of the entities they've been involved with, and they are going to use technology, or think they are, because they will not prevail, providing the people wake up in sufficient time to push you into their agenda. Now, the reason for transhumanism is to make them immortal.
I understood that possibility when I was in my journey of taking ayahuasca. I mean, what you're saying, Thomas, I really understand on a soul level what you're saying.
Yep. It's, if people don't think bio-robots don't exist, I gave an example last year. Stephen Hawking, the scientist, there's your bio-robot right in your face, and that's technology that's 10, 12 years ago. That's the public version. What they don't tell you is the private version, and the gap of 15 years, how much of that type of technology that looks all very clumsy in Stephen Hawking's chair. You know, use your imagination. It's like the Terminator. They introduced that, but they already have them. You had Stephen Greer talking about we might have anti-gravitic craft. We already have them. Laptops, people think they're an invention in the last 20 years. 15 years even. They were in the jungles in Malaysia with Wi-Fi in the 70s. Oops. So, people need to start thinking on a deeper level. Only by thinking on a deeper level will you get a greater understanding of what's taking place currently from an observer point of view, not in the midst, arguing with everyone. Step back. So they've shown me this movie. What does it mean? What does it entail? What are the implications? And if you apply that sort of rhetoric and thinking to all walks of life, that's when you gain the wisdom. That's when you see ahead of the game. But too often we look for the headline and don't see the hidden language. It's like the contract. Sign here and you can have this house. And there's a million of tiny little font words. And you could be signing up for anything. But because of convenience, we just, I'll just sign that. I'm getting a house. We've signed everything away. And now we've got the difficult job and task of unhooking that consent on all levels. Soul level. You're going to hear something rather extraordinary on a Tuesday show to do with souls. And how you've all consented. All of us. I'm no different. Some think I'm any different, but I'm not. And this is what's been taken back. Much progress has been done. Much has been changed. All privately. And yes, I know people want to see it in the face and up front. In essence, you are. But you've lost the ability to see. You might have eyes, but you don't always see. You might have ears, but you don't always listen. You have to start using those two senses more now, and even more, your sixth sense. That's the key of where we're going. The sixth sense. Your intuition, the heart center. Not thinking from gut instinct. That's where the implants are. Or the head, the mind. Or the reptilian cortex. It's called that for a reason. It's all implants at the head, implants at the gut, telling you to go with your gut instincts. Yeah, good luck with that. But what's in the middle of both? The heart center. That's where everything comes from. Or everything where we need to be is. If everyone operates from the heart, personal responsibility increases. Then there's no need for wars and competition and all the fun and games. Or stimulus via what's quite frankly mind-numbing TV. Some of the programs they put on, to me, just defy belief. And they're passing it off as entertainment. It's not entertainment, it's entrainment into the system. And, we've got this guest on here who cast all that aside. That's not an easy path. As she's explained, it's brutal. If you think the easy path is the road to redemption, what's coming up in the next few years, you're going to be in for a big shock. big shock. So you talked about gaining personal power. How did that manifest in you?
The more baggage, the more inner work I did of releasing my my shadow, and the more I came into myself, and the more I was able to feel the purity of my soul, and the more trust I had in myself, I had more strength in being able to deal with the issues at hand and my responsibilities. And it was difficult. I mean, I had shingles 3 times in 6 years.
Wow.
And because of the stress. And I was able to heal my shingles through oils, natural oils. But I know, and this is where sometimes I listen to, when I listen to you on your Thursday shows and people, you're answering questions about the emails that were sent from the listeners, and they're talking about money. See, they're placing their investment on something that's outside of themselves. Rather than something inside of themselves. If they did not have money, how resourceful can they be? Would they go into fear if they had to go 3 days without food? You see, this is all outside of themselves, of creating a safe nest in case the economical system crashes. This is all outside, where the inner strength and the trust needs to come from inside, that whatever happens, you're going to be okay. And you know what? If the shit hits the fan, you're going to do the best you can to try to remedy the situation, rather than, oh, I have to prepare this, I have to prepare this, or I have to have this in there, it's outside of yourself. So personal power really, there's a strength that is developed with what's inside. And I think for me, I can't say, being a single parent is difficult.
Yeah.
But going through which we'll talk, the next segment is about ayahuasca.
Yeah.
And having to gone through at least 3 death initiations, and also the deplorable situations and dangerous situations that I was in, even gave me more strength. And even if I had to resolve the fact that, yes, I can die taking the medicine any time. Yes. And I fully know that. But there's a courage, a strength, a trust. And this has got to be earned. It's not going to be given to anybody. It was not given to me. It's got to be earned by each soul, by each individual, with each experience, with each situation in life, and working that out, so that you have these pockets of wisdom that threads through your life and through your whole journey. So anyway, for me, that's what personal power is. And it's also staying fluid. Like, I don't know what my future is. I don't know where I'm going to go, but I'm not going to get, upset about it, and I'm not going to have to micromanage and figure out what I'm going to do. But I will try to open up every door that offers me a door to open. Yeah. And I'll see where it will take me. But I can trust myself that, I'll try my best to take care of myself. Grace is not always present with me. I being a choleric nature, I have a temper. And there was one retreat recently that pissed me off big time. And we'll touch upon that later, because one of the relative that came with me, he was experiencing serious soul issues. And, you don't want to see me angry at an issue. I'm angry until I work it out. So grace is not always present with me, but it's also that strength. It's that strength that's saying, you know what you did is not okay, and I'm going to address this with you right now.
Boundaries.
And it's yes, exactly, and it's standing up too with what's going on with humanity. It is not okay. All these wars going on. It is not okay. And that's that strength, that courage to stand up and say something. And, what can I do? Well, education's the first thing. Second, I'll try to talk to and educate others, and, reach out to see what you can do to help with humanitarian issues. Help if you can, if it's within your power. So it's we can all do, even if it's just a little bit, but doing your inner work is huge. It's huge in helping humanity in this next stage of evolution.
Absolutely. Right, we're going to go into a music break now, and then we'll have the final portion of the show, which is all about ayahuasca, as Willow has stated. And this is a musical piece coming up next, so enjoy it. Hi all, and welcome back. That was called Somewhere in Time by John Barry and the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra. And the members on the page are complimenting on you on your music choices. I'll also let you know.
Thank you.
So we've kind of gone through the journey of your life, and some of it's fairly brutal. None of it's been easy. None of the steps, no shortcuts, lots of distractions, and then you got on a path which then led you down into the world of the shamanic journey and ultimately the ayahuasca. And so can you let the listeners know about your education in your first year of your shamanic journey?
Okay. Much of this material will be controversial, especially to those that have been practicing with the medicine for many years and that had written books. This is my journey and my understanding of the medicine. So in July of last year, I landed in a retreat, and from the time I took ayahuasca at the retreat center, which is called Nimiyakaya Healing Center in Pucallpa, which I consider the number one and the best retreat to take the medicine, I had communication. Somebody, something was talking to me. And it actually took me about 30 ceremonies to realize, when I would consult with the male shamans and some of the female shamans, that they didn't understand what I was saying, and they had no experience with what I call the mother, the divine mother. And that we were being educated by two different spirits here. I have come to understand that there's an ayahuasca spirit, and what I've been receiving is the Divine Mother, and I'll explain further. So one of the first things, when I first take the medicine and the medicine started to work, one of the first things that was said to me was, how far do you want to take this? And I said, well, I need a life purpose. I give you my heart, and I give you my life. And she says, the communication said, well, if you were to, you are offered a shamanic path, and if you were to accept, you would have to do three things. You would have to go home and quit your job. You would have to give everything that you possibly can away that you own, and you would have to come to Peru for 1 year and take the medicine. And this is just a side note. When I got back, and I told my son and his father said, you better go see your therapist. And I did. And I don't think she knew what to think of it either. But anyway. But my son said to me, Mom, if I hadn't taken the medicine, I wouldn't believe you either. But because I took the medicine, I believe you. So that was consoling. So anyway, I did. I went home and I quit my job. And I started a purge, and I'm still purging. And then I went and took the medicine for a year. Now, I had already raised my son. He was in college, and I had this freedom that I hadn't had since my early 20s. And I was so sick then also, even though I was married, but, I was also sick. And so, but this freedom, it was different. I'm much older, I'm wiser, I have a lot under my belt in terms of wisdom and life experiences. So I'd like to first start on who goes to Peru or South America to take the medicine. There are soldiers with PTSD, severe PTSD, those that are addicted to drugs and alcohol, and those that want to help with their bad habits. I mean, you can't even imagine how many times I heard that, for the medicine to help them with their bad habits and issues. And a woman who lost her 30-year-old son in a hiking accident, and those that are searching for enlightening spiritual experiences. I have found a lot of men take the ayahuasca for those wowie spiritual experiences. Ayahuasca is not a drug. It is a medicine. And after you take it, most people feel nauseous and then have to vomit within the first hour. And it's not pleasant. No one could get addicted to ayahuasca because it's so incredibly tastes bad and it's incredibly unpleasant. The act of vomiting itself is a very violent act on the body. And when I was working on dark stuff, sometimes I would vomit literally for 2 to 3 hours and sometimes throughout the whole night. And it is, for me it was difficult. I can't say I'm a normal person that took it because I was going through shamanic initiations and I was being downloaded with education and experiences. I attended 13 retreats and 2 of them twice, and I had 4 private homes I took ceremony, a total of 55 ceremonies in 1 year. I went to Peru to take it because I was concerned about the future and what I learned regarding world affairs. I took it for a direction or a life purpose, and I thought I may end up employed at a nonprofit organization of some sort. I did not take it for a wowie experience. And once I was initiated, I continued taking it for spiritual education. So I'd like to start with explaining a few things. What is a shaman or a curandero? A curandero is a plant practitioner. So they are educated on the plants, of the plant's applications and the uses. And they take what is called a dieta. And this is where they study the plant. A diet is where they study the plant 7 or 8 days or 30 days, and they ingest it, they drink it, eat it, on a daily basis with the intention to study and contact the spirit of the plant to appear. The spirit would then communicate and educate the information to the individual of the qualities and the uses of the plant. That is called a dieta. Now in ceremony, the shamans sing something what is called the Ecotools. The Ecotools are a set of sacred songs or chants. The Ecotools opens up, once it's sung, it opens up the dimensions of the spiritual world, And it is possible for not only positive spirits, but negative spirits to come through this etheric dimension. It is my opinion that it is not a good idea to listen to these chants on the YouTube videos, and do not repeat the words. And I can tell you a story at the very end about someone who was doing a diet, a young man from Europe, and a diet on marijuana, and what happened to him when he started to sing the Ecotools. But I don't want to get off track right now. So what is a shaman? Now, this is one of the first things that I was taught. It was downloaded to me, and as soon as the ceremony was over, I wrote this down. One can read, educate, and desire to become a shaman. However, one cannot become a shaman unless the spirits of the ancient ones offers the initiation to take the spiritual journey. Once this journey has been accepted by the individual, the journey of inner work is imperative. Mental and emotional intelligence must be acquired along with education, experience, and skills developed in the individual's initiations and practices. If these capacities have not been acquired, then the shaman will not serve humanity as a wise shaman. Now, it took me at least 30 ceremonies to really understand what this meant, because every retreat, whoever gave ceremony was considered a shaman. And here in this one statement, it states that inner work is imperative for the shamanic path. So there are some retreats near Ecotools with a payment of over $2,000 for 6 to 8 weeks of education. Upon completion of this course, an individual will receive a shamanic certification. There are they're called curandero courses, where they can give the medicine. They're taught by Shipipo, quote, shamans. They charge $5,650 U.S. dollars, which is 8,645 soles for 8 weeks. So you have to question, why would this even cost so much? A loaded meal in Peru is 10 soles. In here, it's $10. So they're receiving, in this 8 weeks, 18,000 soles. Okay? And to us, if we were to convert it to our $10 here, that's like $18,000. So basically, I had come to understand over the course of taking the medicine and really understanding their consciousness and the level of the survival that they're on at this period of the time of their own evolution, that this is a multi-million-dollar market all through South America. In fact, I don't think it's in a million. I think it's $1 billion market. So it is my understanding that the individual cannot become a shaman unless he or she has been offered the shamanic initiation by the ancient ones. Okay. That was my understanding. An essential quality in the individual for that offer is they must have true care in their heart for humanity, and the individual has to be dedicated to serve humanity in their highest capacity possible. It is the ancient ones, through the initiation and the practice, that will train, educate, protect, and instruct the individual in their initiations and in the course of their work. That is what I had experienced. Now, a curandero is trained how to use the plant, but understand that the curanderos do not have to be honest. They don't have to have high morals and ethics. The plant kingdom and the spirits will give to anyone who has an interest to learn. However, the curandero self, the shaman self, for them to be even offered the initiation, must have acquired and striven for in their life the highest morals and ethics on a daily basis, and that there has to be a fabric of emotional and mental intelligence as some kind of foundation. If an individual falls to the dark and does not maintain and hold a high moral standard in daily life, then the ancient ones will no longer communicate to the practitioner. Not all, but most of the shamans that gave me the medicine are curanderos. They are not shamans. They are plant practitioners. This became very evident to me the more and more exposure I got to these, to the shamans, and really understanding that they're not wise, and they're not. There's not an intelligence there, and there's not a strong moral fabric. I sensed and I knew that they do not strive for the highest honor in their daily life. These curanderos may have education from the spirit plant world and practice their craft in the study of the plants to heal people, to be able to give the medicine. And in some curanderos, somebody would ask, do you like what you're doing? And why do you do it? And their first response was to feed their family and to give their family a better life. And it also feeds their ego because they're classified and addressed as a shaman. So many retreats and owners place a value of money over their integrity. They refuse to return the money when their medicine did not work for the recipients. And there are many cases where the medicine didn't work for me, and I couldn't understand that, because I've taken the medicine. I went from retreat to retreat, so the medicine was already in my body. It shouldn't have taken that much to even for me to even take off. But sometimes it didn't work, and it took a while for me to figure that out. I have formed the opinion, due to my experience, that sometimes the medicine does not work due to the consciousness of the individual that made it, or the low consciousness of the shaman or the curandero or the land owners. When I was in Pucallpa in Peru, my friends and I did ceremony in their house. We hired a shaman and we purchased the medicine at an ayahuasca shop in town, and the medicine worked well. If the medicine purchased at the ayahuasca shop worked well, then why would the medicine that I took 4 times in ceremony at their retreat not work? At these retreats, there was one particular retreat where the medicine did not work, not only for me, but a woman from the Netherlands and 3 Russians that were there. And yet, the 3 people that did arrive after me, that were dealing with issues of addiction to money, depression, and low self-esteem, the medicine worked for them. We had the same medicine. So I came to understand that the consciousness of the shamans and the landowners had a lot to do with whether the medicine worked. I wasn't sure if it was genetics, but it still could be, it still could be. But from experience to experience, when I was experiencing problems with the medicine, I had to take a step back and look at the consciousness of the retreat. And these retreats refuse to return our money. The Russians had paid like $1,200 to $2,000 because they had invested time there anywhere from 2 to 6 weeks. I paid, I got a deal, I think it was $800. The other 3 people that came paid $1,200, and the shaman said, "Oh, I already spent all the money," and refused to return any money back to any of us.
Can I just interject?
Sure.
There's something I think it's important to get your opinion on, because what I've just heard is people coming with a lower vibration and the medicine working, but once you start rising on your own consciousness, on your own plane of the higher level, suddenly it's not working as well. Do you think it's possible that you've gone beyond the medicine?
That's exactly the conclusion I had made within myself. And also the woman from the Netherlands, she actually took the shaman, the father, his name is Jorge, to the Netherlands to give ceremony and brought him back. Okay? So when she arrived, she was ecstatic that she was going to take ceremony. And I looked at her and I said, you know what? The medicine's not working. When she took the medicine, it didn't work twice for her. She was shocked. Not only was she shocked about the medicine not working, but she was also shocked at the way he lived. There was no boundary within the family. There was no care, personal care in his own personal life. It was evident. So I think she was able to get her money back because she's a friend with them. She paid $800, but the Russians and one French person and myself didn't. In fact, the Russians were there and they had taken 17 ceremonies and it only worked 4 times out of the 17. So, and they have taken ayahuasca many times in the past. So I think that's the conclusion I made. And this is where I really started to look at the consciousness of the shamans. And of course, the medicine was downloading to me and helping me understand this education. So from here on, I will call curanderos shamans for practical purposes. So I had already explained that once the medicine works or is ingested within 10 minutes to 1 hour, people usually vomit, and then the spiritual veil is lifted, and we are now present in the etheric world. When taking the medicine, the shaman is the foundation and protector of the space and the ceremony where one takes the medicine. And it is the medicine, not the shaman. It is the medicine and the individual that takes the medicine along with the divine forces is what promotes the healing of the individual and also the work with the individual. I've heard so many people say to me, "Oh, this take it at this retreat from this shaman. He's very powerful." I've heard there's so much power given over to the shamans. It's not the shamans; it's the soul of the individual. Yeah. I honestly don't think that when I was going through my shamanic initiations that the shamans that were protecting my space could have given me guidance through it. So what effect does the medicine have? Like any drug, ayahuasca will open or activate portals and energy channels that have been closed or dormant for the protection of your soul, mental, emotional, and physical bodies. These portals are closed, and if they were naturally open, then you would be able to access these experiences in your daily life. But they are closed for a purpose. It is for protection. Once these portals have been opened, it is my opinion that an individual must be careful with their practices of drugs and alcohol from that time on after returning home. Under drugs and alcohol, they are open game for the dark forces. Their will and their mental capacities are compromised. I mean, I would sit there in the dining room and listening to these European women that were talking about the hash and their weekend drug excursions that they go to every weekend. They're drinking and drugs, and once you open up these portals, it takes time for them to close. And also, you are now. It's my belief. It's my opinion that you are now on a different playing field.
Yep.
I've seen individuals at the cafe drinking beer or alcohol 2 days after taking the medicine. I don't understand this completely, but it could be that the portals close in periods of different times with different individuals. But I have experienced portals open for a whole week after I returned home from California. I mean, I was still getting communications. And for me, when I took even one ceremony, it took me one whole, because I would be up all that night, and it would be hard for me to even sleep during the day, so I could only take 1 or 3 hour naps. But it would take me that whole next day to recover, plus one whole night of sleep to recover. And it is extremely dangerous that any retreat that gives the medicine that night and puts them on a boat or sends them back into the city is irresponsible, because those portals are still open. And this has happened to me, and I've seen other people take off, and they seem normal. But I'll tell you, one time I left at 6 in the morning, so I was up all night, and we were all put in a boat, and then we were brought to the dock, and we all ended up eating breakfast at 8 o'clock, and my eyes were going cross-eyed. And I could not control what was happening to my visual. And I knew those portals were still open. I paid my check, and I ran to my hotel to sleep. It is so incredibly dangerous to do that, and many retreats are still doing this. And this has got to stop, because it's dangerous to the soul. So many individuals are using the medicine as a method for inner work. Can or does, Okay, so let's back up here. Ayahuasca is not a way of means to find who you are. That's what this part is about. Yes, mystical, spiritual visions are experienced with the medicine, as what Tommy's guest, Ramona Halitha, experienced. And usually those that hold a high moral standard within themselves and in their lives on a daily basis experience these visions. Perhaps their soul journey requires unusual understanding and information, and it may be their spiritual journey and destiny. I mean, it was mine from the very beginning. I never had to do any work. And there was only one time when I specifically asked to do inner work, and in one particular issue. But all of it has been education for me. And this is, I have come to understand after I had finished taking the medicine that this was my destiny. This was my soul's journey.
Yes.
Okay, let's see. Expect that the vibration and the consciousness that you are today and the values that you hold now will be the level of your ayahuasca experience. So if you go there and you have a lot of shadow issues that you want a quick fix, you're going to get the quick fix with that frequency, that vibration, and that experience with ayahuasca. And believe me, I have seen men and women refuse to take the medicine because that ceremony had taken them under so deep that they were in pain. And they asked that's specifically why they went there. There had been, I was talking to this young man who was actually supposed to end up in our retreat, but he actually canceled, which was a good thing. And he said that the man next to him sold drugs, and all night long it was like he was possessed. He was growling and snarling all night long, and then he would end up on his mat. He'd wake him up and say, "Dude, you need to get back on your mat." And he said whenever he touched his mat, he was actually able to feel the dark experiences that this young man was experiencing. And finally he told him, he said, "Look, dude, whatever you're doing, you need to stop, because this is what I hear going on with you with the medicine." And some of these people, when they take the medicine, they don't even know what's happening to them. There was a woman in my first retreat who was screaming throughout the night, "Please help me, please help me, I don't want to die." And I'm not even sure if she was conscious that she was literally saying this for 2 or 3 hours in 2 ceremonies. And so, it's my belief, if you're going to do inner work, try to do it on a day-to-day basis and save yourself, the $2,000, because you still, even after you take the medicine, you're still going to have to come back here and do your inner work. The medicine basically can give you insight, acknowledgement, and knowledge about your issues. But it's not going to fix it for you. It can help you vomit some of the dark energies out of your system, but it's not going to fix it for you. So many individuals are using the medicine as a method for inner work, and inner work must be worked out consciously, not through the medicine. Using the medicine in this way can give an individual a false sense of value. The medicine helps with self-acknowledgement and understanding of one's issues, not self-value. Self-value requires inner work from the individual. So I met an individual who's almost 60, and he states that he has taken the medicine 52 times. He lives near a retreat. Due to the inappropriate behavior, I formed the opinion that he has the emotional intelligence of a 14-year-old boy. He smokes marijuana daily, and he lies immediately when confronted. And so it's asked. I have heard many people, and including on YouTube, that it raises consciousness. It does not. I attended a retreat of a shaman and owner that ran his retreat for 7 years. He had taken the medicine in the 7 years hundreds of times. And in a 3-hour conversation with him, I sensed this, and he stated that he has an emotional intelligence of a 14-year-old boy. It does not raise consciousness, folks. It just doesn't. It may give you a wowie experience, and that wowie experience may only last an hour or two, but you just spent $2,000, and you've opened up your portals. And it is absolutely necessary. If you're going to take the medicine, take it in a safe place. Don't go on what your friends say, this is a great retreat. Unless they have studied it and they really understand the serious consequences of exposing yourself in this way, then take it in a safe place. That's all I could say.
Can I just interject here? Because, those who are seeking, like you just said, it's not raising your consciousness, because that comes from within. In essence, the people who think and the people who are teaching that it will are basically advocating for what we did in the past as humans, and the City of Light pill again, where you take one pill and it cures everything. It doesn't. And you only fix or cure yourself by doing a long journey, and it is a long journey. That may take more than one lifetime. And there's too many examples throughout life where we use the convenient method. I'll just do this and I don't have to deal with it again. Convenience. I mentioned this on the show recently about convenience. No, the real work requires lots of work. Not dipping your toe in the water and I'll take this pill or I'll take this medicine or I'll go to this one retreat and I think I'm now all nature and loving and the highest. No, it takes work. This is what Willow was telling you. It takes a lot of inner work and a lot of understanding. You can't go into it blind and go, well, I've paid me money and I'm going to be fine. That's not how it works. That's how they want you to believe.
Yes, it is a medicine, and it has helped a lot of people. but they don't realize that a lot of what they're told, they already knew.
Yeah.
And yes, okay, they process a lot through vomiting, through grieving. It's like 10 therapy sessions in one.
Perfect.
But again, you're opening up your spiritual portals. So I'd like to talk about the dangers of taking ayahuasca. And I myself have been in many dangerous situations. But because this was my study, and because I was under the guidance of whom I call the Divine Mother and the Ancient Ones, that I just had faith and trust, and I knew, and I didn't think, but I knew I would be protected. So there are several retreats on the Internet that are 5 stars that I consider to be dangerous or grossly neglectful. Of all the retreats I attended, I can only recommend 2. This is 2 out of 13. One retreat, the medicine was very good, but the shaman I found was not safe, and I ended up leaving at midnight after the second ceremony. And upon conversing with via email with owners, they said that they keep changing shamans, and so to me, I actually got a spiritual fever, and I ended up having to come home early. But anyway, I'll get into that. So the rest of the retreats I find are mediocre in the medicine, and their care for people are not worthy of your time or money. So I consider a dark or lower self shaman as a shaman that is living in their lower chakras, which I call base consciousness, which is mindless sex and pornography, money driven, their values, that money overrides their morals and ethics. They're egocentric, they're out for power, and they do not strive for high morals and ethics, nor do they live their life in high morals and ethics. The consciousness of a lower self shaman will have lower self entities attracted to the shamans. These entities will then have the capacity to be present, seen, or felt in ceremony. They have the capacity to create, the shamans have the capacity to create a foundation for you to do your work on your lower self. They themselves do not have the capacity to experience the medicine in the heart chakras level and up, nor can they provide the foundation for you in the higher realms. Therefore, when they have recipients, and they get great praise when the recipients who attends the retreats does much work on processing their lower self and their shadow self. With all the experience I had with taking the medicine, I could not transcend the lower self shaman's consciousness. I couldn't, and I would, either the medicine didn't work or I vomited all night. And I could not have, sometimes I couldn't even get the communication for education. I mean, that's why I pay all the money just to fly there. I pay the money for the retreat, is because I was very eager to learn and grow as much as I can and to experience as much as I can. But with the lower self shamans, I mean, I barely got off the ground, and it was exasperating. So, of course, I'm not going to waste time. So an hour and a half passes, and I start to initiate my own work. And so, let's see. Okay. If an individual takes the medicine from a dark shaman, and some are witch doctors, their soul may be in danger if they let the shaman in, if they give their trust to the shaman while under the medicine. And this is like heal me. Like they come and they sing in front of you and they say, heal me. Now, an individual may experience with a dark shaman, and I've experienced this, and I know people that have experienced this. I've seen it with my own eyes. I've communicated with them. paralyzation of their physical capacities, uncontrollable cognitive clarity and abilities, uncontrollable ability of their will during ceremony to stop what is occurring, nightmares during the ceremony reoccurring upon returning home, and the soul and body possession even upon returning home to their country. Now, my experience in taking the medicine with the dark shaman is that he was a shaman, and his son-in-law was our shamans. Upon meeting, as soon as the good shamans left, I started to develop a body rash, a full body rash. By the time I met him, I knew we were all in trouble because I could feel him. And after the ceremony, I just protected myself all night. I knew better, but the other people didn't, and they paid for it. I developed the full body rash, and I have pictures of it. And I had wretched vomiting after ingesting the medicine, during the ceremony, and after the ceremony. And if it was possible, I left the retreat as early as possible, even at midnight. In short, the spiritual entities on a similar level of the shaman's moral and ethical values are then attracted to the shaman. The singing of the Ecotools by the shamans opens up the dimensions into the spiritual world for light or dark entities, and the participants in the ceremony are then exposed to the lower spiritual entities that are connected to the lower self shamans. In short, that's how it works. That's what I've experienced, that's what I've observed, and that's what I've learned. Okay, so an individual's dark habits and deeds. If an individual has, say, issues, let's say a woman that uses her body for sexual favors as means for money, or for her male partner to pay her survival needs, or a male that is using women for sexual pleasure only, or someone that sells drugs on the street, these three individuals will have entities in their etheric field that are attracted to them and on their frequency, vibration, and values, and they will be in company with the consciousness of these entities in ceremony. Everyone in the ceremony is affected by the collective consciousness of each other, and this is why it is best to attend smaller group ceremonies. Some of these retreats have up to 20 people. And I think that 10 to 12 should be the max. But anyway, this also applies to your personal life. The company of your consciousness applies to your intimate life, your personal life, your social, and your professional life, and your relationships as well, on all those levels. So that's your mirror. In walking through life, it is necessary to build your consciousness daily using all of your faculties in the full conscious state, working out your problems, dealing with your issues, relationships, challenges, and your shadows and your fears, etc. I have come to understand, especially when I was encountered with the dark forces, not only in ceremony, but actually in my own bed, I have come to understand that the dark forces do not want me to be a fully conscious individual with a clear mind, a strong will, and devotion to develop myself in the highest capacity possible.
Yep.
This is where we need to go, is to understand that you have to be in full will, mental capacities, and conscious. And drinking, you lose 4 to 6 hours of your life, and you are not in full force of your capacities. Okay, so opening yourself up to a shaman in ceremony. The Peruvian shamans and curanderos has ancestry, tribal belief, and education that it is necessary to blow smoke and agua de la Florida on the head and hands before, during, or after the ceremony on the recipient that is taking the medicine for protection and healing. I want to ask everyone, would you leave your child with a shaman that you have never met before in blind trust for 5 hours without your presence? When you open yourself up, when you go to a retreat, this is what you're doing. You are leaving yourself up and open to someone you have never met and you don't know. I came to understand that an individual should not allow any shamans to blow smoke or agua de la Florida on the top of their head or their hands unless they trust the shaman. And I had done this for 30 ceremonies. And then what happened, I think what happened was my education had exceeded to a certain level where when they blew smoke on my head, it didn't feel right. Something felt wrong, and then I had to start looking at that. And I started to feel and having to vomit out the lower self shamans in the ceremonies. Now, I was lucky. There were times when my life was in danger, and I was in a safe place where I did trust the shamans. And, of course, because I went into this whole experience blindly and I did not do any education, and I was also told by the medicine, do not educate yourself on anything. Most of the books were written by men, and you are going to experience this organically. So in every step of the way, in all this education that I received, it was through ignorance and the guidance of the ancient ones. So this is why it is very important to place yourself in a highly reputable retreat. There are only 2 retreats that I allow the shamans, for me, to touch my head and hands. In fact, I was admonished by, in this last trip, by one of the facilitators saying, you don't want tobaccos blown at you and protection because it makes me vomit, it makes me ill. And I was also taught through the medicine, do not depend on anything outside of yourself to protect yourself. But it is a belief that the smoke will protect you. And so he admonished me and said, well, if anything happens to you, don't you come blaming us. That's exactly what he said to me. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, your dogma of what you believe is totally, it's dogma. That's what it is. But, I had to train myself to take care of myself because nobody was going to do that for me. So, okay, so the head and the hands are spiritual portals to the inside of the human spiritual body as well as the feet and the chakras. The ears, eyes, mouth, nose, and the pelvic area are physical portals. Now, I need to really make this clear. The shaman is the foundation and the caretaker of the spirit. So if the shamans are supposed to have been trained where if they saw a soul leave the physical body, that they have the capacity to retrieve that soul. Okay? So, but basically, they are the foundation to protect that space of ceremony. The landowners is the foundation and caretaker of the land. The retreat owner is the foundation and caretaker of the business. And altogether, they are the container to hold you in ceremony. Therefore, the shamans and the owners must acquire honor in their self and in their service. And highest honor in their values, morals, ethics is imperative. So the safe, protective foundation for the recipients to take the medicine is the shaman's job, and by singing the Ecotools, they open up the spiritual dimensions. So, let's see, if you give yourself over to the shaman, then the shaman will have access to your different levels of self, your soul, your mental, emotional, and or physical bodies. I have personally met individuals that experienced this invasion of the self on all 4 levels. They were incapable or incapacitated mentally, emotionally, and physically once they took the medicine and they let the shaman in. In one case, the shamans were trying to sell her soul to a dark entity, and she still had to battle their control once she returned home. She came back and she took the medicine another 50 times to stop it. She lost her mind for 10 days and ended up in the hospital. And then she had to come back. She was experiencing physical sensations in her own country after that whole ordeal that she had to live through. So she actually left the retreat. She was a facilitator at one of my retreats, and she actually left the retreat at the same time I did. And she told this story to me and the woman from the Netherlands at 7:30 at night. And both of us are looking at each other, knowing exactly what's going on, because she was asking us what she thought was going on. And we knew that she was actually exposed and actually saw a dark entity and was fascinated by its wings and tried to stroke the wings. That's the memory that she had. So how did this even happen? And it was because she let the shaman in, a stranger that she did not even know. And this is a reputable 5-star retreat in Ecotools. When taking the medicine, it is necessary for each individual to protect their self. This can be centering oneself, aligning your chakras, closing off your personal field by wrapping a bubble or protection around your aura or body, or invoking the divine parents or the forces. And for me, I use some of my training, and I also invoke the divine parents and align the divine forces within me. Some so unwise, or some of the shamans, some of the shamans that allow their recipients to leave after 10 hours, they're not even aware about the dangers. They have no concept of what portals are in the body. I can't say that. Some of them do. Some of them do. A lot of them don't, has been my experience. And there were 3 times when I did leave, if I have memory right, there were 3 times when I left right the night after the ceremony. Now, it's my opinion that people under the age of 25 should not take the medicine. And this is my opinion only. They should not be facilitators. They should not be helpers at retreats. Or at the retreats, they should not be healers, such as giving massages or yoga. As a general rule, with the exception of the peoples of the tribal cultures in their country, which means I have no say about the Peruvians giving the medicine to anyone under 25. That's not my culture. But my study is about consciousness, and I caution the individuals under 25 is because of the lack of self and the strong foundation of the self that they have not developed.
Yes.
Of course, exceptions of the course could apply to a soul or an individual, but without a strong foundation of the self, the medicine, if they take medicine with an irresponsible or dark shaman, the soul of the individual may be compromised and result in danger. The shaman does not necessarily have to be a dark shaman. He or she could be irresponsible, and this, I will tell you what happened in this last trip. This was not a dark shaman. He was just irresponsible, and he was incapable to provide a good, strong, protective foundation for the recipients while in ceremony due to the lack of integrity of their work, personal care, experience, intentions, wisdom, or they may be driven by money to give ceremony and not by the heart. So I had experiences in 2 different retreats with this issue. I call this a spiritual fever. The body temperature measured by a thermometer above normal, this is an indication that the individual's soul had been compromised and is in danger. And my relative in this last retreat experienced this. And this was at a retreat called Kapatari. Estacion Kapatari is a 5-star. They were known to give retreats for 10 members, 10 recipients only. And I booked with them because I had attended in, I think it was November or December, and they had 2 shamans. Well, this time, in 6 months, they expanded to 20 and 1 shaman. It was the most noisiest, loudest, out of control ceremony I had ever experienced. And my relative, by the third, I'd never been in this situation before, and I had to figure out what was going on. And by the third ceremony, we left. We didn't take the 4th one. And my relative developed a fever, and he could not take the medicine in the next retreat. So that $730 was wasted. But that's just monetary. What pissed me off big time was the fact that my relative felt like something was trying to pull the soul out of his head. And he couldn't sleep. And in the third ceremony, I was outside, and there were 3 facilitators. One was inside it's called the Maloka, or the temple where they do the ceremony. The other 2 were outside with me, and the shaman who's running the whole thing comes from the opposite side of the Maloka, stops and talks in Spanish to the 2 facilitators and walks into the Maloka. And I'm looking at this, and I'm thinking, if he's here, who in the hell is in there protecting the space for all the people in there under the medicine? And we left the very next morning. And I have been consulting with them, and they've been blaming us. They've been blaming me. They refused to return $2,400 for 3 of us. And sure. This is dangerous. And he has been giving medicine. His name is Don Lucho for a very long time. But I guess 33,000 solas is not enough for him. He's got to have 66,000 solas. And the fact that he didn't even hire another shaman. And then I found out, and I didn't know this, that there was a death that occurred on that property in that retreat 1.5 years ago. And then everything made sense. And the first time I was there, I was dealing with the dark forces of how what we do in our daily life and what we expose ourselves to affects our consciousness and the soul, how it paints the soul so we can't feel the purity of the soul. So that was lower self work. Well, it was not lower self work, it was lower educational work. So I literally vomited for 2 ceremonies, and I was sick for 4 days. So I was not aware of the consciousness until this time around. And I had clearly stated to them in email that they are not, and this is from the divine parents, they are not to serve the medicine to anyone anymore. They do not have the wisdom, and it is dangerous for people for what they're doing. So that's that period of time when grace is not present with me, and I'm mad as hell. So anyway, I had to deal with that situation in this last. So needless to say, the journey with the medicine with this individual was exceptionally dark, and there was no ability or capacity to help oneself mentally, emotionally, physically, or on the soul level when they're in that type of danger. At this point, it is necessary for any individual to leave and seek help elsewhere as soon as possible. Trusting one's inner guidance is necessary that something is not right or they may be in danger. And the shaman and the facilitator will usually try to blame you and your own issues. which is what happened over and over and over again. I kept seeing. And it wasn't just with me. You know, people would bring up things and they would just blame the other people. Oh, the medicine's not working because of you. Not even looking about what their part in it is. So this last part is reviews on the internet of people that took the medicine. You know, the wowie experience posted on the internet should be taken and put on a shelf. There's a natural high after taking the medicine and returning home, and there's a lack of education and ignorance as to what they are advocating. It would be interesting to know the progress of self-development made by each individual from the time they took the medicine and a year or two later. It is my opinion that there's not enough understanding, study, or information regarding a follow-up with the individuals and their lives after taking the medicine. And I finished my 1-year commitment to taking the medicine, and would I take it again? Yes. This is a study for me. I'm taking the medicine to educate. I'm not one of those that experience these wowie visions, and that's not my objective to even take the medicine. It does take a physical toll on my body. I mean, literally, sometimes I'm sick for a whole month while I'm there. I'm not well, and vomiting sometimes for a whole night when I'm being educated and downloaded with something. It's difficult. And 1 year ago, I had a dental checkup. I come back 1 year later, and I get another checkup, and I have 4 cavities, and the dentist thinks it's the acid from the vomiting that created the decay in my teeth. So it is serious business. It's amazing. It's amazing medicine. I have seen a lot of soldiers with PTSD. I've seen that mother that, you know, people. I myself have seen my 2 deceased brothers, my deceased relatives, and my father. But I never asked, can you take me there? I mean, who am I to say, you know, I want to look at this, I want to look at that, will you teach me this? Who am I to even say that? Who am I to even say I'm shaman material? You know, we are dancing and playing in the field of the spiritual realm, and it is serious business. And the medicine in Peru, and I don't know about elsewhere, has taken on greed as number one. Now, I understand the retreat owners that are foreign, like the Miyakaya. They're from the United States, and they're absolutely high-conscious, wonderful human beings. And it costs a lot, you know, to fly back home and to see their loved ones. But the Peruvian retreats, to charge $1,000, that's 3,000 soles for one person. This is a sacred medicine on their land, and there's absolutely no way, it's my opinion, that they should even be giving the medicine and charging, that it should be totally on a donation basis. This is a sacred medicine that is not a commodity. It is the spiritual world.
Yeah.
So that's my opinion, and of course that's going to rattle a lot of, and I'm sure after this next part where I'm going to expose some of these retreats, because I think it's necessary that people who have made reservations in these retreats, that they get their money back. And you know, I talked to you, Thomas, yesterday about this, whether I should expose this, and you know, with encouragement, yes, and I'm in full agreement that this is my job. In fact, there were times when I was just in tears, and lack of food, lack of sleep, still glossed over unconscious, and I'm just crying in my tumble. I'm crying on the street on the way to my sleeping quarters, and the medicine would say to me, "This is your job. You are a shaman." I mean, no slack for me, you know. It was it is my job, and my next step now is to take it on a higher level in exposing this, because people are getting hurt, and the consequence is their soul. That's what's hanging in the balance. It's not their things or the material things, it's their soul. So anyway, if you're going to take the medicine, the only two retreats, and again, this is only my recommendation. You talk to someone who's dealing with money issues or ego issues or pornography issues, they're going to tell you something else. They're going to tell you, wowie, this. So these are the only ones that I've attended thus far, and I don't know if I'm going to continue going to other retreats that I haven't been to assess them, because it takes a real toll on my body, and it's very costly, and it's really hard. It's been a very difficult journey for me. Yeah. So if I take the medicine, it will probably be in the two that I recommend, and my number one choice is Namiya Kaya Healing Center. They charge, it's expensive. It's $1,650 for 9 days and 8 nights. It's in Pucallpa, Peru, and they do have a maximum of 16 people. And their housing is 2 people per tombo. They used to be 4, but they now may have made it 2. So they took very good care of me. This is out of the 4 ceremonies in my first retreat with them. I had 3 shamanic initiations, and they took excellent care of me. Their food is excellent. The retreat owners are just heart and high conscious-minded individuals. Really embody the divine feminine and the divine masculine. The other one is they are working on making their medicine stronger. They are of a higher level than, I would say, the mediocre ones that I have taken in the past, and they are called the Ayahuasca Oasis Healing Center. They are in the process of putting up a website, but you can contact them through ayahuascaoasis@gmail.com. They allow only 10 people, and they're $730. They're a new retreat, so their accommodations are not as comfortable as Namiya Kaya, but they will take they understand true care of the personal self as well as Namiya Kaya. So. And they are Peruvian owned, but in there is who resides there is the best shaman I ever had, and through his ceremonies I was able to heal the dead. And when he came to sing at my bed, the Ecotools, I was in a total bliss state. And upon several conversations, he had been always very giving and extended himself far beyond. In fact, I was told by a family friend that has known him for 30 years and said that his name is Guido. That Guido is known along the Nanai River, and that people that know him will go and summon a boat, and he will go and give ceremony, even if it's only for 10 solas or a chicken. That's the true shaman. And so that's Ayahuasca Oasis they're hoping to be the permanent home for Guido. And they are in training, is a female shaman there, but she's not yet practicing. They think maybe next year. But regardless, these are 2 safe places to take. Now, these are ones that I do not recommend, and I'll run them through quickly because of time. Gayatri, and Flower of Life, Lakshma Eco Lodge. I do not recommend. I'll just run through the reasons why. Gayatri, their medicine is just mediocre, but they don't understand and take care of the true personal self. The accommodations were uncomfortable with mosquitoes in my room and fleas and mosquitoes in the Maloka during ceremony. Refugio Altaplanto, retreat center, he actually, along with Jaconete, allowed people to leave the day after the ceremony. Refugio Otaplanto, they don't know how to really care for people. They feed you, the owner is 100 pounds overweight, and what he eats is what you eat, which is vegetarian, meat-flavored soy. And there are many things, actually. There's a whole list. The Flower of Life, I just came back from that, and the medicine didn't work. And she refused to return our money. There were 2 of us there. The other woman, in 4 ceremonies, the medicine didn't work. And she does not, it's all about the fluff. Her accommodations are amazing, but the medicine doesn't work, and her shaman had only been practicing for 5 months, not over a year, like she had told us. Jaconete is a Shapipo-run retreat. They refuse to give any of our money back. It's the 3 Russians, the Netherlands, and myself. The medicine didn't work. Now, these retreats are dangerous. The Estacion Capatari Retreat Center, the Phoenix Rose Ayahuasca Retreat Center. They actually picked me up. I was the only one there. I asked them why they canceled, and they said that we needed your money. They then dumped me. They gave me 1 ceremony and dumped me in another retreat center to take the ceremony. They didn't want to take care of me after that. They even refused to pay my lunch. They did pay my 2 ceremonies at another place, but they also did not pay my accommodations. They're unethical. The previous owner was Phoenix Ayahuasca. They changed it to Phoenix Rose Ayahuasca, and there was a death on that property. There was a murder a year and a half ago. Amaru Spirits, Selva Madre. Selva Madre is where I experienced the body rash and the dark shamans. This is a very dangerous place to take ceremony. Amaru Spirits, it's very interesting. I looked on their website, and I don't know why this made, I have to look at my notes why it made the dangerous list, but there are no owners or employees or in there about us on who's running it. Nahiu Rao, that retreat is dealing with the dark entities and dark forces, and they put Toei in there. Toei is a plant that makes it causes problems with the heart, and it causes you to spin, and it takes you way out there. You can actually lose your mind with Toei. They put that in their brew. And there's a shaman near Alta Palmic near Tarapoto. And this shaman has a red door, wears a red hat, and this beautiful couple from Hawaii took there, and they realized there was Toei in there, and they went spinning, and they literally were vomiting even after 4 days after their first ceremony. They paid $1,000, and none of the money was returned. There's a lady in Pucallpa who uses a boombox. She's dangerous to take the medicine. She sent us out after ceremony at 3 o'clock in the morning. And I was having, my life was in danger at that time. Avito Belfian, he's an Israel shaman. He gives ceremony in Pucallpa, Spain, and Germany. He kept skipping meals every day. In 6 days, I lost 15 pounds. I was so weak. I had to leave. And he hired no one to cook. So that's why we kept skipping meals. Everyone's hungover with ayahuasca the next day. And all the people that were supposed to be helpers, they were on ayahuasca as well. So there was no one not taking the medicine to watch out for any of us. And Sol de Mayo Guest House in Pucallpa. She had given me 2 of my ceremonies, and she's not a cuendero, and she's not a shaman, and she is dangerous to give the medicine. Now, there are 2 articles with Anaconda Cosmica and La Nueva Luz Cosmica. There were 2 deaths connected to the shaman Guillermo Arival. A friend of mine actually exposed this to me. And so watch out for that center. So anyway, that wraps it up for ayahuasca. And
well, that's a fascinating story, and a heartfelt journey. And kudos to you for having the courage to go and do that, largely on your own. And this is some of the things that we mention on the show about following a difficult path. Step outside of your self-imposed limitations. Recognise there are no boundaries apart from when you start interfering in other people's lives. Then boundaries come in. But there's no limitation as to what you as an individual can achieve. And so I think this has been an extraordinary learning curve for us all that you've put across today. And one thing I'd like to, after listening to it all, that maybe you should ponder on after this show. Have you not considered you are the Divine Mother?
yes, I, during ceremony, she would say, invoke me. And I would say, I am the Divine Mother. And she also told me to invoke the Fathers. So I am the Divine Holy Father. And that's what I use to protect myself, is I would invoke earth, air, and fire, and then I would invoke the Divine Mother. And that Divine Mother is who I align myself with. And so that's, to me, it was just the education of what I just call the Divine Mother. But I think somewhere in me I had this to write all this material, because we haven't even touched on the education of the Divine Feminine and the Divine Masculine that was downloaded to me. We haven't even touched upon that information. But yes, I mean, every woman, every man has a divine parents in them, and we are the divine. And this is my final say is that. Occasionally I date, but I haven't found anyone my age in their 50s or to 65 that had educated himself in an alternative media, and I consider them closed minds as middle-aged thinking. And this was a breaker in beginning any relationship. I was always viewed as a conspiracy chaser, so I'm hoping that the viewers out there will start to begin meetup groups called TH&IS, Truth, Honor, and Integrity Show -TM, Tommy Williams, and so that we can all find and support each other. And then also, I just want to say in closing, is that you are a creation of Source with talents and skills. You have the choice to take up responsibility to develop yourself in the highest capacity possible. The honor in thoughts, words, and actions, high morals and ethics is absolutely necessary when walking the path to the light. As you acquire wisdom and balance, you will be able to live as a self-governed, self-powered individual. You have the choice to take up the responsibility to serve others and humanity on this highest level of your gifts and talents, and to be the divine individual that you are. So what I'm doing here is what I have developed within myself. I'm just serving a teeny, teeny small pocket to help humanity in the way that I can, in just this small capacity. And I know that everyone out there has that too, that capacity to serve, be it big, huge like you, Tommy, or small like me, to serve in that way. And so,
thank you.
Anyway.
Right.
Thank you, Thomas, for who you are. Thank you so much. You've given me so much hope.
Right. That brings an end to part 4 of An Evening with Thomas. I hope you all got a lot out of that. It may be a good thing to replay this and consider where you stand all of us. Are you imposing limitations? Are you not doing the best you can be? Each of us has our own path. Not all will achieve a desired goal. But at the end of the day, the journey that counts. What have you learned from it? What do you gain from it? How can that be repurposed in your life of the now and the future? It's all down to your own free will. Step outside of the matrix and the side streets that they keep putting in front of you to take you off your path, and walk forward proudly like this person has. So I hope you enjoyed the show, and we're going to finish with a final piece of music called The Rate On by Morten Lauritsen, and we'll be back on Tuesday, which will be an interesting show, to say the least. You know, all the other big shows that we have, and the faction show and the future of humanity and all that stuff, this will go down the same. So look forward to that. We'll be back with a normal show on Thursday also, and next week, next Sunday, we will have Eric Lewis as our Part 5 guest on An Evening with Thomas, and the following Sunday there'll be a gap of An Evening with Thomas because I'll be appearing on the OIM radio. So, busy times. So, we'll end the show. Thanks to Willow, and thank you for all listening. This has been An Evening with Thomas on the Truth, Honour and Integrity show. Bye for now.